Good morning everyone, I am GrimzyFinds. If you're new to this channel, I am a full-time eBay reseller. Last year I quit my job around February and I've been reselling online ever since. In this video I'm going to be covering something a little bit different. Last year I pretty much just sold on the platform eBay, a little bit of Amazon, and of course conventions, etc. Aside from all that, I didn't cross-list to any other platform, but this year I wanted to do a different try, my dabble in cross-listing and see if that helped. So in this video, I'm going to be covering 3 basic points of cross-listing. Number 1, why? Number 2, what are advantages and disadvantages? And number 3, any tips. So in this video, I'm going to be covering all that, and let's get to it. I've seen many comments in Facebook groups and in general about eBay being slow. eBay is not as good as it used to be. Complain to the moon about what's going on with eBay. And to some extent, I understand that. I've dealt with the same events last year. Sometimes it was really slow to the point where you're like freaking out because that is your income. This year, I wanted to tackle cross-listing because there is still slow days here and there in eBay. And when those happen, I want to be prepared for it, right? So the reason why I'm cross-listing is because I would like to increase sales, especially on those low days. And it's happened before where my eBay sales day was pretty low, and then all of a sudden I sell 2 or 3 things on the other platforms, and it ends up evening out. That's the main reason why I cross-list. Why maybe you should cross-list if you're dealing with the same thing. If you have slow sales days, sometimes it can help to cross-list and increase your sales. You're spreading your inventory to more of an audience. It's hard to believe, but not everyone's on eBay, right? Amazon is like a big hole of the Titan, so there's a lot more people on there, but there's also a lot more returns. The reason I haven't dabbled into Amazon is because it takes a lot of steps and a lot of revenue to get ungated on certain things. You want to sell something, but you can't because you're gated, and you can't just sit there with your hands crossed until you get ungated. The other platforms help when that happens, and it's been working out pretty well. Some advantages and disadvantages. My second point, advantages, I already mentioned some of it. If you're having a slow sales day on eBay, this helps pick up the sales and the slack when you're not getting on eBay. Another advantage is making your inventory more available to a bunch of other people, and maybe because you're selling something, if you include a thank you card with your eBay link, they might follow your eBay store, and that might increase your eBay sales then. Now, the disadvantages of cross-listing: if something sells in 2 platforms, and it's happened to me already once, what do you do? For this disadvantage, I don't want to take the hit on eBay. eBay is the bigger store, so what I do, and that happened with me with Mercari, I messaged the Mercari, apologize for the mistake, and that it was no longer available, and that I might be getting more of this inventory in the future, but once again, I apologizing that this isn't them, it's you. And all you can really do is apologize and refund them. That's basically what I did. To counteract that disadvantage though, as soon as you solve something, you want to unlist it. To list and unlist, I use the platform called List Perfectly. A bunch of other people use it. There's other platforms like Vendu, but I tried it and I didn't like it. List Perfectly is very simple. They have tutorials on how to do things and how to list and unlist. It does cost money to cross list, and that's another disadvantage, but what I'm gaining from that is well worth it. Getting like an extra $200, maybe even $300 a month because I'm cross-listing. So it's very helpful to cross-list as far as revenue goes, but you do have to put revenue in to help revenue out. For one more point for disadvantage, I would have to say is you're dealing with different shipping options. So on eBay, you're used to making your own shipping, like, okay, you're gonna do priority or ground advantage or whatever. For the 3 platforms I'm using, which is Etsy, Poshmark, and also Mercari, they have different ways of shipping. Etsy is very similar to eBay, but you have to make a shipping plan. And so the 3 different ways to ship can get confusing, and at Mercari especially, because Mercari, once you pass £1, they ship only priority, and it's like an inflated price, it almost seems. The shipping can be very expensive and that might deter buyers. Usually when something's over £1, what I'll do is I'll bake in the shipping price, and that way I can ship it ground advantage once it's over £1. Poshmark is usually mostly priority as well, but they have basically a £4 or £5 limit, so you can ship anything as long as it doesn't go over dimension and also weight. So all the shipping stuff can get a little bit confusing for those platforms, but at the same time, I'm so used to shipping. I've been shipping for a straight year and a couple months now, so I'm used to it now. It's not that much of a disadvantage for me, but for new people that they don't know what the shipping costs are and everything, it can be a little confusing. So that's another disadvantage. All right, last thing I want to talk, I'm just going to talk about a little bit of tips and a little bit of my experience with cross-listing for the last part. As I mentioned before, I do cross-list on 3 platforms, Etsy, Poshmark, and Mercari. Etsy is one of the ones where if you have a lot of vintage or a lot of handmade stuff, then that is the platform for you. But otherwise, I deter from listing on Etsy because you can't. I mean, if it's not vintage or handmade, you can't list there. And also they charge a 10-cent fee per listing, and if it renews, I think it's like a 20 cent or another 10 cents to relist it. So that's why I deter away from Etsy a little bit. I mean, I'm only going to list stuff that I know it's going to sell or it's vintage and it belongs in the platform. As far as Poshmark and Mercari go, those are both great. I'm going to talk about Poshmark first. Poshmark, you can list a bunch of stuff. It's not just clothing. A lot of people just think Poshmark is clothing and shoes. You can list electronics, you can list toys, you can list a bunch of stuff that you may not be aware of on Poshmark. And listing on Poshmark is free. You can list as much as you want. They do take a percentage off of your final value fees, so that there is that, but you can list as much as you want. You don't need a store subscription to list a bunch of stuff. So I do like Poshmark in that aspect of it. And again, their shipping makes it very simple. I mean, the buyer pays one shipping cost and you can ship it in a priority box. If you have a bunch of priority boxes, most of their postage will be priority. For Mercari, I mean, obviously if you sell on Mercari, you already know that there's 0 listing fees now. So if you sell something for $50, you get the $50. So that is another plus. And especially if you're baking in the shipping. Before I was deterred to bake in the shipping because it was subjected to their fee, but now that the fee is gone, if you bake in the shipping, it's like, it's okay because you're going to get the full amount anyway. So do you like what Mercari is doing as far as the 0 fees go? I'm just a little bit worried about, you know, the buyers decreasing, but I mean, who knows? Maybe, I'm sure they know what they're doing. If I don't have to pay fees, I'm absolutely happy with that. Poshmark and Mercari have been working very well for me. I mean, it's not night and day. I do sell a thing or two every now and then. It's nice to have that, especially when you're having a slow eBay sales day. As far as Etsy goes, I have very little sold there, but I have very listed there as well. So let me know in the comments below if you guys enjoyed this video, if you've been cross-listing, and if you have, what platform do you use to cross-list and where have you been cross-listing? And we'll see what I find next. Thanks, guys.